Picture this. It's 8:30 p.m. You've just survived a day of per my last email chains, a commute that felt like a scene from Mad Max, and the soul-crushing weight of deciding what's for dinner. You finally flop onto your couch. You have the entire history of human cinema at your fingertips. You could watch that new $200 million sci-fi epic everyone is tweeting about. You could watch the gritty, award-winning drama about a chef having a mental breakdown. But what do you actually do? You navigate past the new releases like they're landmines and click on The Office for the 47th time. Or Friends. Or Grey's Anatomy. You know exactly what Michael Scott is going to say. You know the exact moment the laugh track kicks in. You could literally recite the dialogue in your sleep, which is convenient because you're probably going to fall asleep to it. To an outsider, or maybe to that judgmental voice in your head, it looks like you're being lazy, boring, uninspired. But here's the truth. Your brain isn't being lazy. It's performing a high-level act of emotional self-regulation. You aren't just watching TV. You are engaging in a psychological restoration process known as reconsumption. Today, we're going to dive into why your brain treats a familiar show like a weighted blanket, the neurochemistry of predictable rewards, and why choosing a rerun might actually be a sign of high emotional intelligence. We live in a world that practically worships the new. Our algorithms are designed to push the latest, the trendiest, and the most shocking content directly into our retinas. We're told that to be an interesting, functional adult, you need to be current. But there is a massive, silent group of us, and I'm definitely in this club, who find profound, genuine comfort in the repetitive. Why? Because the modern world is an exhausting, unpredictable dumpster fire of variables. Psychologists have found that rewatching a show isn't about the plot at all. It's about the neurochemical, predictable reward system. When you watch something new, your brain is in a state of high alert processing. You are constantly evaluating new faces, trying to predict plot twists, and managing the low-level anxiety of the unknown. Is that character a villain? Is the dog going to die? Please don't let the dog die. This is cognitive load. It's mental work. But when you rewatch, that load disappears. The difference between a new series and a comfort show is the difference between navigating a dense, dark forest with a flickering flashlight and walking through your own backyard. In the forest, you're on edge. In your backyard, you can actually stop and look at the flowers because you already know where the path leads. Before we get into the heavy brain science, I want to hear from you. What is your anchor show? That one series that feels like a warm hug when the world feels like a cold shower. Is it a 90s sitcom? A specific Disney movie? A procedural crime show where you know they'll catch the guy in exactly 42 minutes? Drop it in the comments. I'm genuinely curious to see what stories act as the psychological anchors for this community. In psychology, we talk about something called optimal arousal theory. Basically, every human has a sweet spot for stimulation. If you're bored, you seek out something exciting. If you're stressed, you seek out something calming. The problem is that for most of us, our arousal levels are already peaked by the time we hit the couch. Between social media notifications, work deadlines, and the general complexity of life, our nervous systems are fried. We don't need a twist ending that makes our heart race. We need a sensory floor. We need an environment where dopamine is delivered in predictable microdoses. When you watch a familiar episode, your brain receives a reward every time a joke lands or a familiar theme song plays. It's a closed loop of satisfaction. There's no risk. Research in cognitive psychology suggests that rewatching provides a sense of perceived control. Think about it. In your real life, you can't control the economy, your boss's mood, or whether your car is going to make that weird clicking noise tomorrow. But in the world of your favorite sitcom, you are the master of time and space. This predictability literally lowers your cortisol levels, the hormone responsible for your fight or flight response. By choosing the known quantity, you're telling your nervous system, hey, we're safe here. We know how this ends. You can stand down. You are moving from a state of survival to a state of rest and digest. Now let's get a little weird, but in a wholesome way. Let's talk about parasocial relationships. Your brain is incredibly advanced, but it's also kind of an idiot when it comes to social evolution. Deep down, your lizard brain doesn't fully distinguish between a real friend and a character you've spent 200 hours with. When you see a familiar face on screen, your brain releases oxytocin, the bonding hormone. You aren't just observing a script, you are visiting a social circle where you are always welcome and where nobody ever lets you down. For people who find the real world of dating apps and social posturing to be exhausting, these parasocial connections offer a safe, reciprocal, adjacent experience of community. You don't have to perform for the characters on screen. You don't have to worry about being judged. They are there for you, exactly as they were last time and the time before that. It's a form of emotional outsourcing. You're using these characters to fill a social need during times when your real-world social battery is at 1%. And honestly, that's not a failure. That's a life hack. There's a specific reason why many of us gravitate toward shows we watched in our teens or early 20s. If you're a millennial, Gen X, or an Zennial, you grew up in the analog transition. You remember a time when you couldn't just Google the ending of a show. You had to wait a week for the next episode. This created what we call deeper encoding. The stories you watched during those formative years weren't just content, they were integrated into your sense of self. Rewatching those shows is a form of autobiographical memory maintenance. You aren't just watching a plot. You're checking in with the version of you that existed when you first saw it. Watching a specific show might remind you of the smell of your childhood living room, or bring back that specific feeling of teenage mystery and late-night snacks. You are using the media as a time machine to access a version of yourself that felt more certain, more curious, or perhaps just less tired. It's a way of anchoring your identity in a world that is constantly trying to shift it. Now, because I'm your resident psychology nerd, I have to be honest with you. There is a shadow side to this. Sometimes the move toward the familiar isn't just a choice, it's a defense mechanism. There's a fine line between seeking peace and seeking hiding. How do you tell the difference? Healthy reconsumption means you've had a full day, you're tired, and you want a reliable way to wind down so you can sleep well and tackle tomorrow. You feel refreshed after watching. Unhealthy reconsumption means you feel a sense of fear at the idea of watching anything new. You use the familiar show to avoid the vulnerability of being moved or challenged. You're using it to numb out rather than calm down. If you find that your emotional armor has become so thick that you literally cannot engage with a new story, it might be a sign that your nervous system is trapped in a chronic state of overwhelm. It's not about the TV show. It's about the fact that your real life feels so unpredictable that you've lost the reserve tank needed for novelty. But for the vast majority of us, it's just self-awareness. It means you know how to manage your own energy. You understand that your capacity for empathy and attention is a limited resource. By choosing to rewatch, you are allocating your empathy where it's safe, so that you can show up better in your real-life relationships the next day. So, the next time someone rolls their eyes because they see you watching the same episode for the 100th time, give them a little smirk. You aren't being basic, you're being a neurochemical mastermind. You are giving your prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for complex problem-solving and adulting, a much-needed vacation. You are playing a different game than the rest of the world. While everyone else is chasing the next big thing and spiking their anxiety levels in the process, you are cultivating inner peace. In a culture that demands we always move forward, there is something quietly radical about choosing to stay exactly where you are, with a story you love, for the 10th time. You are finding transcendence in the small rituals of a familiar scene. That isn't a social failure, it's a biological superpower. You know how to ground yourself. You know how to find home, even when you're just sitting on your couch. If you understand exactly why you need that one specific movie to fall asleep, or why you've seen every episode of your favorite show more times than you can count, I want you to do something for me. Type the word anchor in the comments. It's our little code, a way to acknowledge the stories that keep us grounded when the world feels a bit too chaotic. Thank you for spending some time in my backyard today. Go put on your favorite show, grab a snack, and let your brain take that vacation. It's earned it.